Hello, everyone. Welcome to the regenBC conference. We hope you will enjoy this event from the comfort of your home, office, or home office. We are thrilled that this web event can reach people across the province and not just those in the Lower Mainland. My name is Brittany Anderson, and I am your host for this evening. I am the MLA for Nelson Creston and the Premier's Special Advisor on Youth, and it is an absolute honor to be here with all of you today. Before we get started, I just wanted to call out a few housekeeping notes. Please make sure that your speakers are working. So if you're wondering why you can't hear me right now, they might not be working. All you have to do is there's the right output selected. To test, click the audio settings at the bottom left corner of your screen. And I believe someone that's helping behind the scenes will put that information into the chat. And I would like to start by acknowledging that we are grateful to be here virtually and gathered on Indigenous land, and regardless of where you're joining us from today. I am personally joining you from the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Sinixt, and the Syilx peoples. And I think this is particularly important as Canada is about to honor the National Day of Reconciliation this coming Thursday. So regenerative agriculture, the reason why we're all here today, is deeply important to me. I am so grateful that the Ministry of Agriculture has created this conference, to all of the presenters and to all that are attending the event tonight. I feel grateful to have the privilege of being your host this evening. A little bit about my background. I first became interested in agriculture after hearing Vandana Shiva speak. And after a few years, I had the opportunity to actually live on her seed-saving farm, Bija Vidya Peeth, as an intern in northern India. I led the development of a regenerative agriculture standards, working with cultivators across North America. I've worked with cultivators in the Kootenays as well, both large and small scale. I truly believe that the future of agriculture needs to be regenerative, and I look forward to learning from everyone this evening and into the future. I also believe that this is just the beginning of the conversation at this level in British Columbia, and we are moving in an important direction with this work. I would like to end by thanking all of the regenerative leaders out there for driving this conversation forward. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, our first speaker of the evening, Heather Stretch. She has been farming for over 20 years and operates Northbrook Farm and co-owns Saanich Organics on southern Vancouver Island. She now serves as the co-president of Organic BC. Over to you, Heather.
Hello, good evening. My name is Heather Stretch. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that although I normally live and work and farm on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, right now I am far away on the traditional lands of the Catawba people. So I'm Heather Stretch. I am very honored to have been asked by the organizers of regenBC, thank you, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries to introduce your keynote speaker for this evening, Gabe Brown. What an honor this is. So first, just a little bit about me and about Organic BC. I am the producer, I'm the operator of Northbrook Farm and the co-owner of Saanich Organics, a small organic distribution company on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. I'm also the co-president of Organic BC. So a little bit about my farm, Northbrook. It's a 20-acre property where that's more complex than you would imagine on 20 acres. Co-owned by different people, parts of it leased to other producers, businesses that work together, people that work together. So a complex structure where we all work together toward a very simple, unified goal, and that is to sustain ourselves and our staff while we produce as much nutrient-dense, sustainably grown food as we can, while taking care of and regenerating the soil on our lands. Likewise, Organic BC is a somewhat of a complex organization with a simple goal to build a better agriculture, build a better organic agriculture in BC. And we do that through a somewhat complex structure of local certifying bodies that work together, and two main arms of Organic BC. One that maintains the very important accreditation side that makes sure our standards are rigorous and applied fairly. And then the other arm is our advocacy side, where we're working to build organic acres in BC, build the supply and the demand, and work with partner organizations and work with producers. So now a bit about Gabe Brown to introduce him. I could just run down the highlights of his biography, but I think that would take more than the couple minutes allotted to me. So instead, I'll just tell you why I am so excited to hear his keynote this evening. Gabe Brown has had an impact far beyond the 5,000 acres that he and his family are in the ongoing process of transforming and regenerating in North Dakota. Through his advocacy and education work, Gabe Brown has significantly moved the needle on regenerative ag in North America and around the world. Mr. Brown is not only is he a star of Netflix fame, but he's also, and more importantly to me, he is an advocate for ongoing learning, testing, trialing, never staying still. And as someone who began farming 21 years ago with no experience at all, I'll tell you, that concept of constant learning, constant trying, and then learning again is very near and dear to me. Gabe speaks about regenerative agriculture as a journey, not a destination, and that's certainly how I see my farm. And that is how Organic BC sees organic practices and standards. Farms and ranches and our food system, they're living systems and they don't remain static. So I think we all need to be open to the concepts of organic and regenerative and the practices we use, being open to change and evolve. I respect Gabe for being such a clear communicator. Gabe doesn't pull his punches. He has strong opinions and is very clear in stating them. But he doesn't exclude in his style of communication. He is a bridge builder, not a divider. I sometimes fear that there's a perception from the outside that the organic community can sometimes function as a gatekeeper to sustainable agriculture practices, and that's something we're working hard to remedy. We in the organic community want to work to build bridges and to bring people along on the journey toward better, more sustainable, regenerative agriculture. One step at a time, one field at a time. We've got a big job, and we've all got to be pulling in the same direction. I see exciting overlaps and parallels right now between the way that leaders like Gabe use the term regenerative and how I've always used the term organic. In the organic community, we've talked for decades about building our soil organic matter, and now in a time of climate crisis, we're reframing that a bit and talking about carbon sequestration. One of the very foundational principles of organic agriculture is soil health, and that is, the foundation of what Gabe has to teach us about. The organic sector has decades of experience and success building consumer confidence through our rigorous standards, maintaining and applying those standards. We will continue to do this important work to bring this piece of consumer confidence to the conversations around regenerative agriculture. Make sure that term never becomes a term used to greenwash. This is too important. In a time of climate crisis, we all need to work together to implement and develop and then redevelop and re-implement and work together to improve our best practices. This is, as I say, this is a time for all hands on deck working to build a better agriculture in North America. One final word about Gabe. I know my time is running out. As I heard Gabe on a YouTube video describe his gardening system of chucking vegetable seeds out with 30 different species of cover crop seed to see what happens, I definitely broke out in hives a little bit thinking about that in my small scale intensive market garden scenario. But as Gabe Brown says, one of his main principles in regenerative agriculture is is context specific farming, and so his chaos gardening would not work in my context. But I do know more than anything that we need solutions to a better agriculture for every different scale, every different context, every different commodity, and I think this week is a great opportunity to explore those different contexts. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gabe Brown. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Heather Stretch. And as Heather introduced, our next speaker is Gabe Brown. And I know we're all really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, Gabe is not able to be live with us today, but lucky for us, he has pre-recorded his keynote. Let's take a look.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to discuss with you today regenerative agriculture and the possibilities I see for it as we really try to heal our ecosystems. Humanity today faces many challenges. One of those is how to feed a growing population. The numbers of inhabitants on Earth are increasing yearly. How are we going to feed this population? How do we mitigate climate change? There's no doubt there's more carbon in the atmosphere than at any time in recorded history. How do we take that carbon back out of the atmosphere and move it into the soils where it belongs? We have water quality issues, from our rivers, lakes, streams, to our estuaries, to our oceans. We have too much nitrates, phosphates, and pollution in our watersheds. How are we going to heal this? We have air quality issues. Air quality issues from industry, from burning, from fires, from exhaust fumes, many other sources. We have record low farm profitability. No matter what country I travel to, we see this over and over. Farm profitability is at record lows. This leads to a decline in our rural communities. Just drive through the countryside. What do you see? You see many, many small towns that are drying up. The businesses have left them. The people have left these small towns. How are we going to revitalize our rural communities? One of the major problems we have globally today is that of a human health crisis. We're seeing illness run rampant through all ages of society. Illnesses that were not seen before have become prominent. How are we going to address those issues? Yes, agriculture is partially to blame for all of these things. Farmers have degraded our earth for centuries. It started with cultivation. It's important for us to realize that the practices we use in agriculture and have used in agriculture for a long period of time have been slowly but surely degrading our ecosystems. They have caused the rise and fall of many civilizations. Take a look at this series of photos. On the lower right, you see April 14th, 1935, the Dust Bowl in the United States. And the left-hand side of the photo was taken in 2014 in Colorado. What do you notice about these pictures? One of the striking things is obviously that we haven't changed anything in all those years, but take a closer look. Look at the difference of the color of that soil that's being eroded away. That shows just how much carbon has been lost in our soils over those decades. Our practices today continue to degrade our ecosystems. This photo was taken in the Central Valley of California, where much of the produce that's eaten in North America comes from. Yet, look at those soils. Constant tillage between vegetable crops has eroded these soils to the point where they're more or less just a medium to hold a plant upright. They're not providing the nutrients that are needed for either the plant or the people who consume them. These two photos are an excellent illustration of the degradation caused by our production practices. On the left, you see where a farmer had a forested area, was 4.3% organic matter. He then cleared part of that forested area and farmed it monoculture soybeans for 17 years with tillage used. Soil organic matter levels dropped to 1.6%. It's easy to tell by looking at those two photos which is higher in carbon, which is going to infiltrate more water, which is going to store more water, which is more resilient, which is going to have more biology, which is going to be more productive. If we look under a microscope, take a look at the differences. The forested area is very well aggregated. Those pore spaces allow for the infiltration of water. They are also where biology lives. Biology lives in and on thin films of water in the pore spaces between those soil aggregates. Take a look at the photo on the right. Those soils are very collapsed. There's very little aggregation. There's no home for biology. Water is not going to infiltrate in there. There's no armor protecting the soil surface. This is what we're doing with our agricultural practices today. But there is another way. It's nature's way. Nature always acts in context. In nature, there's no mechanical and there's limited chemical disturbance. Yes, plants put out chemicals at all times, but not the copious amounts of chemicals we use in agriculture today. In nature, there's always armor on the soil surface. Nature always tries to cover the soil. Look at your gardens. When you go till a garden, nature always tries to grow something. Weeds show up because nature's trying to protect the soil. Natural systems are very diverse. Where in nature do you find a monoculture? Usually only where mankind's actions has caused it to be. In nature, nutrients are cycled via biology. There's no need for these copious amounts of synthetic nutrients that we use in agriculture today. Nature is very productive via biology without added nutrients. Nature abounds with animals and insects. Nature does not function properly without animals and insects. And lastly, there's thousands and thousands of years of research and development into this system. We can regenerate our ecosystems using these principles. What you see before you is a shovel full of soil from my ranch. The ped on the front of the shovel is taken from the neighbor's soils right across the fence line. Little bit of difference there, right? Ray Archuleta said it very well when he said plant and soil are one. We cannot have healthy soil without growing plants. We call these the 6 principles of a healthy soil ecosystem. Those 6 principles then drive the 4 ecosystem processes of the energy cycle, the water cycle, the mineral cycle, and community dynamics. We use those 6 to drive the 4. Let me show you. What is regenerative agriculture? In my mind, regenerative agriculture is a renewal of a food and farming systems which aims to regenerate topsoil, increase biodiversity, improve the mineral, carbon, and water cycles, all while improving farm, ranch, and community profitability while ensuring an enjoyable quality of life. The first principle is context. We have to farm and ranch within our ecological context. What's our environment? So often we're farming and ranching out of context. I use myself as an example. For 20 plus years, I calved here in North Dakota in January and February. That is out of context. That's not when the deer have their fawns. I now move to calving in May and June. I'm calving in context with nature. As I drive through the prairie provinces of Canada, I now see many acres of corn and soybeans. Those are warm season crops. Canada is a cool season environment. We're farming out of context. Another context that we need to take into consideration is financial context. How much capital do you have? Farming and ranching are very capital intensive. They do not have to be nearly that, though. We have community context, everything from family through society. And then we also have a spiritual context. All of these need to be taken into account. They're going to be different for every farm, ranch, or business. The second principle is least amount of disturbance possible. The photo you see in front of you is me planting corn, no-till, through heavy residue. Look at what I'm doing there, how little I'm disturbing the soil. Those firming wheels simply hold that residue down, allowing for a small slice to be made in the soil through the residue, dropping the seed in place, closing that soil over that seed, allowing as little disturbance as possible. This is how nature functions. Besides tillage disturbance, we also have other disturbances from chemicals, from fertilizers, from pesticides, from fungicides. We use way too much of those in agriculture today, and they're not needed if we farm and ranch in nature's image. The third principle is armor on the soil surface. This photo shows a field that I seeded. Notice you did not see any bare soil. Just as our skin protects our body, we need that armor on the soil surface to protect the soil from wind erosion, from water erosion, from evaporation. We need to protect the biology beneath the soil surface. There's more microorganisms in a teaspoonful of healthy soil than there are people on this planet. Yet how many of us think about what those microorganisms need, the protection they need, the home they need, the food they need? The fourth principle is diversity. Nature abhors a monoculture. It thrives on diversity. The photo that you see there is a corn crop with a diverse cover crop growing between the corn rows. Nature is much more collaborative than it is competitive. That cover crop is helping to cycle nutrients. It's attracting pollinator and predator insects, it's adding to the health of the corn crop. The fifth principle is living root in the soil as long as possible throughout the year. Nature wants to collect solar energy. Look at all the different leaf sizes and shapes of this diverse cover crop mix. How much sunlight is going to hit the soil surface without being intercepted by a leaf? As farmers and ranchers, we make our living through growing plants. We have to be able to collect as much solar energy as possible, where through photosynthesis all these carbon compounds can be made, and it's the carbon compounds that fuels the system. The sixth principle is integration of animals. So often today in production agriculture, we've removed the animals from the landscape. How were these soils formed? They were formed with grazing animals moving across the landscape, biting a plant. When that plant is bitten, it sends off root exudates to attract biology to regrow, thus cycling more carbon out of the atmosphere. We need to get animals out of the feedlots, out of confinement, back onto the landscape where they can enhance the nutrient cycle, the water cycle, the carbon cycle. Besides animals, we need insects also. For every insect species that's a pest, there's approximately 1,700 that are beneficial. Yet so often in agriculture, we focus on killing that one pest. Why don't we provide the home and habitat for all the beneficials? Then we would not have to worry about that pest. We can regenerate our ecosystems. This photo shows my regenerated soils on the left and the neighbor's soils on the right. And I will tell you, those neighbor's soils are 10 years no-till. Yet look at how compressed they are. No aggregation. No biology. It's not good enough just to be no-till. We truly have to be regenerative. The pictures on the right are my neighbor's soil. The pictures on the left are my soils. I started with soil that was more degraded than that of my neighbors. Yet through using these 6 principles to drive the 4 ecosystem processes, we've regenerated our soils. We've taken it from soils that could only infiltrate less than 1/2 of an inch of rainfall per hour to today where through scientific means we've documented that we can infiltrate over 30 inches per hour. We've taken soils with less than 2% organic matter and brought carbon out of the atmosphere into the soil, where today the organic matter levels on my ranch are from 5.3 to 7.9%. This is what my soils look like today. You can tell they're high in carbon. They're going to infiltrate water. They cycle nutrients. We have not used any synthetic fertility since 2007. We have not used a fungicide, a pesticide, or an insecticide in over 20 years. We can do this anywhere in the world also. This is the Chihuahuan Desert of Mexico, very degraded from overgrazing. However, there are ranchers who, through using these holistic practices, have regenerated their landscape. This is Mr. Carrillo in the Chihuahuan Desert. Him and his son Alejandro took a very deserted, degraded landscape and turned it into a lush ecosystem. This is being done on less than 8 inches of precipitation annually, simply by using animals as a tool to regenerate the soils. By applying these principles, we take massive amounts of carbon out of the atmosphere. We keep nutrients on our farms in organic form. We heal our watersheds. We clean the air. We significantly increase farm profitability and resiliency. We revitalize our rural communities. We improve human health through nutrient-dense food. 10-year no-till on the left, regenerative on the right. What we call this is common ground for common good. Let's, as society, all come together and focus on the 80% of the things we agree on. We all want to take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it into the soils. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We want farmers to be profitable. We want to revitalize our rural communities. And we want truly nutrient-dense food for the health of society. Yes, we can feed the world while regenerating our resources, all while restoring hope for future generations. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Gabe. And I hope that all of you were as inspired and hopeful at home as I felt with that presentation. I think that's exactly the type of message we need to be hearing right now. So thank you, Gabe, for being just so on point and so inspiring. Next, I would like to introduce our next keynote speaker, Karin Manhas, the founder and CEO of Terramera. Founded in 2010, the Vancouver-based company has earned an international recognition for its technologies that protect human health and the environment to ensure that the earth thrives and provides for everyone. Terramera has received numerous recognitions, including the Global Clean Tech 100 list, winner of the Nutrient Radical Challenge Canada, winner of BDC and Business Council of Canada CLIC Challenge, and finalist in the Fast Company World Changing Idea. So Karen, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. Over to you.
Thanks, Brittany. My name is Karin Manhas. I am the founder and CEO of Terramera, and I want to recognize that Terramera is based in Vancouver, the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people and the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I want to thank Minister Lana Popham and the BC government, the BC Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries team, and the staff for putting on this conference. It's really exciting to hear have this forum going, have the conversation on regenerative really start moving in this province and around the world. I am required to do a little legal disclaimer. Everything I present here are ideas are my own and of Terramera's, and we can start. So today I'm going to be talking about regenerative agriculture, how it can help solve some of the major global problems that we're facing, how and what we are doing to build and help scale regenerative agriculture, and how BC can really help lead the world here. So agriculture is really at the center of some of the biggest problems we're facing today: climate, human survival, social health issues, the integrity of our lands, our soil, biodiversity, and our economics. So while the pandemic has really helped reinvigorate the importance of farming and local food production, in the past years, producers have continued to struggle. For example, in Canada, net farm income dropped nearly 50% between 2016 and 2019. That really has a huge impact on individuals, on families, on rural communities that depend on farmers and our entire food system. And we've also lost, let me see if I can get to the next slide here. Here we go. We've lost about the 1/3 of the world's topsoil, and farm soils have lost about 50 to 70% of the original carbon stock prior to cultivation due to our management practices. And the UN estimates that we may only have around 60 harvests left if we keep continuing the way that we are today. So we're here talking about regenerative agriculture, and regenerative agriculture is at the center and really a solution to all of these problems. First, regenerative agriculture is really, it comes from its focus, and the name comes from its focus on soil. It's a form of management, agriculture and land management that focuses on soil regeneration. We're essentially growing and regenerating topsoil and soil organic matter. And so the focus at the center is soil health. So why is that? Because soil health is, as you heard from Gabe, at the foundation of a healthy ecosystem. Regenerative farming has a number of key benefits, both to the farmer and to all of us, to society, from increases in yield and crop quality, increases in profitability, better water retention, and a lower risk and better protection against pests and disease. So what this means for all of us and for agriculture is greater resilience against extreme weather conditions, against drought, against floods, lower costs for farmers, higher profits, and a real economically beneficial process to really mitigate against climate change. So carbon is much maligned in today's day and age, but we're all carbon life forms. Plants are made of carbon. Soil organic matter is the majority carbon. The problem isn't carbon. The problem is that we have too much carbon in the atmosphere and not enough carbon in our soils. Too much carbon in the atmosphere is a problem for all of us, but too much carbon in the soil is something that every farmer wants. That is great for not only for farm production, but the resilience of all of our lands and really the immune system and lungs of the earth. So carbon is pulled out of the atmosphere by plants through photosynthesis. What the plants don't need, they pull, and the exudates are stored in the soil. Some of that is stored for a longer period of time, and they help feed the soil structure and the as Gabe was talking about, the biology, the microbiome of the soil. Carbon is the main component of soil organic matter, and it's one of the key things that helps hold water retention and is a major part of the soil's structure and the soil's health. So we heard from Gabe just a moment ago. He's converted over 5,000 acres of his land just south of the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border to start testing regenerative agriculture several decades ago. A few things I just wanted to really drive some points on. He talked about it in his talk, but as he started implementing regeneration of his soil, he has increased his soil organic matter significantly from very degraded levels around 1% up to 8 to 11%. So what that means is that the carbon levels in the soil have gone up to between 4, in some cases, in some of his fields, higher than 6%. What that means in terms of the amount of carbon or CO2 equivalent that those acres hold is that he's gone from 10 or less than 10. His neighbors neighboring fields are holding between 3 to 15 tons of CO2 equivalent per acre, up to where he's been able to increase the soil health and quality up to above 40, in some cases over 60 tons sequestered per acre. So if you put that in perspective of the world's arable land, the world's farmland, British Columbia's farmland, it's significant. It makes a significant impact to start moving farming to regenerative, not only because it's better for us, it's better for farm profits, but it's a significant benefit to climate change. So what are the barriers? Why aren't we already doing this? Why hasn't this scaled widely? Well, there's a number of key barriers. Gabe talked about in his talk the importance of context. Regenerative agriculture is a bit different from the conventional ways we've been thinking about agriculture across the board. It is less process driven. It is focused on the context of that particular area of land. It's very much focused on how to be able to optimize both energy nutrient processes of the land, as well as really increasing biodiversity. All of those come together to actually develop a much more holistic methodology of farming, but it's very different from the monocropping methodology that we use today. So there's changes in culture, in capacity, in cultural practices, in understanding how to make those changes, removing the risk, costs in some cases to actually start making that transition from existing equipment to buying no-till drills. So as we move forward on that, one of the key things is how do we actually start building that capacity and understanding for landowners, producers, on how to understand what to do in their context, on that individual piece of land, for what, you know, in the climate, on that local microclimate, and then also even beyond that is really understanding what the producer wants to see out of the land, what the demand is that's coming out of the land, and the aspirations of the producer. One of the key things that we're focused on is the opportunity to really move agriculture through regenerative to outcomes, not just processes. We haven't had the ability to really use technology and a methodology to get to outcomes, to optimize towards outcomes. And one of the key things that we have the opportunity here with regenerative is, because it's so context driven, it's difficult to be able to optimize to a process on how you get that right. That's also a real opportunity. It's an opportunity for technology, an opportunity for agritech, it's an opportunity for us to think differently. So as a company, Terramera has been based here in British Columbia for a number of years. We focused originally on green chemistries. How do we really lower the amount of synthetic chemistry that is used globally, with a better understanding of those chemistries and not wasting those. That capacity really helped us be able to understand how to track materials, not just the materials that were being put on farm and where they were going, but also molecules, materials inside the plant, like nutrition, nutrient density, sugar, protein, as well as things like tracking soil carbon. So a real focus of the company, a new area, really what we call intelligent agriculture, is applying those tool sets to support tools and supports to allow and support producers, landowners, farmers to transition more successfully, more easily, more profitably to regenerative practices. So when we think about regenerative, it means a lot of things, but it also, even producers who have already gone regenerative, it falls along a spectrum. We oftentimes in Canada think about the number of regenerative practices that many British Columbian and Canadian farmers are already using, like no-till. But as you saw with some of Gabe's photos, no-till is really just table stakes to what is possible with regenerative. Here's actually an example of what we're dealing with when we're talking about scaling regenerative worldwide. So we work closely with Gabe and his group on really understanding the differences and other farmers on the differences between what's been successful and not successful, not just in conventional and organic no-till practices, but in different scales of regenerative. So on the left is a regenerative dairy, grass-fed. You can see the grass of forage. On the right is a better regenerative forage operation. This is one of the folks that Gabe Brown's actually worked with. It's not the best. Having seen what his farm, many others that are really practicing great practices, the one on the right is much better along the spectrum. It still has more work to do. But how do we really help to understand and optimize land so that we can build those practices, help support the context? And so one of the key things that we are building, and we're working with both Gabe Brown's group as well as farmers that are out in front of wanting to build out and get tools to help them in this process. We're not in the beta stage yet, it's really in the alpha, but we're building out tools that really focus on farmer experience and help with that transition to help to regenerative agriculture. So again, those tools are not only a basis to help with the context, with agronomy, but really to help look at how those activities are generating outcomes that are important. And the key really is to make it economic, because that is the critical piece that regenerative both brings and the best way to scale it to the widest number of producers. Well, you know, one of the things that we looked at over the last number of years is how can we really help support the scaling of regenerative profitably? Now, regenerative can be as much more profitable. In fact, it is much more profitable than other forms of farming. But the key is, how do we help scale and increase that focus on farmer profitability so that it's profitable within 1 year, within 2 years, within 1 year if possible. And we've seen that it's done. It can be done with the right set of tools, supports for that grower, and you know, a tight, understandable process of how to be able to make that transition. So with a number of studies have been done on the increase in profitability in regenerative. There's in the United States, you can find studies that show it's in corn 78% more profitable than conventional. We've seen farms that have doubled their profitability 4 times, 10 times, in one case 100 times increase in profitability. Some of our team was just down in the Midwest area where a First Nation converted their farmlands from conventional practices, and within 4 years saw more than doubling of revenue from those farms, and a much greater social connection and social cohesion about understanding where their food comes from and how to really support the cycle of food production for their community. So BC has an incredible opportunity here. BC has some of the best technology companies that are working in the clean tech area, generally a population that's very focused on better ways of doing things, to break paradigms, to really find the solutions that not only support economic success, but also support the social fabric of what we're building and our environment. We also have a set of producers that are very interested in regenerative practices, and a high value set of producers compared to many other areas. But there's one other thing that's very exciting. BC has an agricultural land reserve of about 12 million acres. That's a significant asset for the province. half of that is currently farmed, but it's a huge opportunity to really potentially build what could be an opportunity to build the world's largest regenerative agricultural initiative. What if we could actually take that land and really show the world how you do this well, what works and what doesn't work well? This is not specifically on regenerative, but if you look at some of the comparisons on economic value of agriculture, the Netherlands is a tiny country, only 2.5 million acres of farmland compared to the over 12 million that's found in BC's agricultural land reserve. Not only are they doing 400 times more experts per acre, but there's more jobs as a result of that confluence of production and engineering and technology. If we were able to actually apply that specifically to regenerative, which actually is much more productive by building the soil and increase that production in BC lands, there's a huge opportunity for the province. Let alone 400 times if we doubled or tripled the economic activity in the province. That would make a huge impact on the province and rural communities and the families that they support, as well as the food security of our province. So as a company at Terramera, we have 3 audacious goals, and you see them in front of you. And scaling regenerative agriculture and improving soil health contributes to all 3 of them. 1, increasing soil organic carbon. One of our goals is doubling the amount of soil organic carbon stocks. We can go much more than double. The Earth's the average across the Earth's farmland, 5.1 million acres of farmland, is around 1%. You saw in Gabe Brown's fields that can go up to 3, 4, 5, 6% or more. So significant opportunities there. And as we sequester more soil, more carbon, that improves the soil health, the resiliency of farms against weather and climate change, improving farm productivity and profitability. Farmers are we're in a very lucky position in British Columbia. Farmers as a whole across the world are some of the poorest people in the world. The majority of the world's poorest billion people are farmers, subsistence farmers. As we really start to understand this here in BC, how we may be able to actually apply these principles. Not only do we support the increase and understand how we can increase soil carbon, but then how that actually affects farm productivity and profitability from small farms to large. And as we do that, that higher productivity really reduces the need for soil chemistry. You heard from Gabe Brown how they've really transitioned completely out of using both added nutrition, and insecticides and pesticides, which then not using those increases the health of the soil biology, and the soil's ability to really produce that nutrition and fertility itself, and thereby again increasing the soil structure, regenerating the soil, and sequestering more carbon. So we have a real opportunity here on our hands. The difficult situation that we have faced ourselves as a province, as a society, as a species during COVID, really has also opened people's minds about what's possible and the importance of their local food system to local survival. We have an opportunity to not only help understand how we can scale and increase the adoption of regenerative practices, really understand how we can optimize initial regenerative practices to better regenerative practices, and make a significant impact as we quantify how much carbon is actually being sequestered there, to make a significant impact on climate, on the recovery of our province economically, and our local food security. So we have an opportunity here to really lead the way. It's an exciting opportunity. It's an exciting thing to see the province take this initiative with starting this conversation at this conference and launch the Regenerative Agriculture and Agritech Network. We're excited to be able to work with all of you and see how we as a province could really lead the way. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you again. Thank you for putting this on and for all the organizers. And we have a huge opportunity in front of us, a lot more to learn. Looking forward to working with many of you and glad to see the large amount of interest in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karin. I think your message of British Columbia really needs to lead the way for Canada on this is so important. And so I really appreciated that message. Now, I'm pleased to say that our next item on the agenda is a video of a farm who has adopted regenerative agricultural on their farm in BC. Please enjoy.
Right there, just like little coming up, and then yeah, so lots of different plants growing there. I grew up in a family of 12 children, and my mom and dad raised us on the farm. They farmed organically and regeneratively since the 1970s. My mom and dad, they helped start the BC Association of Regenerative Agriculture, and they helped start the Certified Organic Association in British Columbia.
Even here, everybody now puts in cover crops, which they 30 years ago they never ever did. And actually that puts the life into the soil.
So in a week, this will be like all lush and green. This will look like a lawn.
So a healthy soil would be where the organisms, the soil food web, within that soil are doing that nutrient cycling.
The reason I started organic farming is I wanted people to be healthy, to eat healthy food.
The innovation is the soil science, is the realization that soil is doing a lot more, and not to hurt the soil, not to kill it. The plants have a relationship with the fungi and with the microorganisms around them to make it so that where it's growing, if it's healthy, it will be able to regulate or help regulate what microorganisms are growing around it. Whatever would happen in nature, you know, we try to mimic that.
I think the most important things about our farm is the resilience of the soil and the plants. We've had really, really great crops this year, even 46 degrees.
Even though the climate's been tough, our method works. We're on the right track. I'm convinced. I challenge anybody to say that they grow better food than us.
Now, the solution is organic regenerative agriculture without the use of chemicals.
Certification for organics is important because it shows best practices. Like people who eat the food know that they're getting a product that is, you know, meets a certain set of standards. That's where organic agriculture is really important, and it really needs to play a role in the regenerative agriculture movement going forward.
Our farm's living proof of it. It's a living, breathing organism all in itself, and I think the solution is for each farm to be a living, breathing organism.
We have the tools now to actually look in the soil, look what's happening and why it's happening. And that's where agritech is just beautiful.